Ambassador Jiho Park walked through the huge doors of the Galactic Council's main meeting room. His clean black uniform looked strange, next to all the colorful clothes and weird body shapes of aliens from hundreds of different worlds. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that made every small sound echo around the massive chamber. Park had been to this place many times before, but today felt different. Today, every seat was filled. Creatures with tentacles sat next to beings made of living metal. Some aliens floated in the air while others needed special chairs just to fit their massive bodies. The tension in the room was so thick you could almost touch it. High Commander Vextar stood up first. He was a Kethvar, which meant he looked like a giant lizard with 4 powerful arms. Each arm was covered in scars from old battles. When he Mandita spoke, his voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. "Humans have crossed the line," Vextar said, all 4 arms moving as he talked. "Your people build colonies wherever they want. You ignore our old agreements. You take planets that belong to others." Park just stood there and listened. He knew this was coming. For months, human colonies had been expanding into areas that other species claimed. But what these aliens didn't understand was why humans were doing it. An ancient creature called Elder Thys spoke next. The Zephyrians were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been exploring space when humans were, still living in caves. Elder Thys looked like a tall, thin tree with glowing blue bark. When she talked, her voice sounded like wind through leaves. "We signed treaties with Earth 50 years ago," she said sadly. "Humans promised to respect the old boundaries. Now, they build space stations in systems we marked as forbidden." Then came the Milani representatives. They looked like giant butterflies with 6 arms each. Their leader, Trademaster Zilk, buzzed angrily as he spoke. "Human ships block our trade routes," Zilk complained. "They demand taxes from merchants, who have used these paths for thousands of years. They are destroying the galactic economy." One by one, more aliens stood up to complain about humans. The Korath, who looked like walking rocks, said humans were mining their sacred asteroids. The Veltai, swimming in special water tanks, claimed human colonies were polluting their ocean worlds. Park listened to everything without saying a word. His face showed no emotion, but inside he was getting angry. These aliens had no idea what they were talking about. They saw human expansion and thought it was greed or aggression. They didn't understand that humans were running out of options. Earth was overcrowded. Billions of people needed new homes. The colonies weren't about taking land from others. They were about survival. But every time humans tried to explain this, the aliens just saw it as making excuses. Chancellor Mordun finally stood up. He was the current leader of the council, chosen by vote every 2 years. Mordun was a Nexari, which meant he looked like a giant octopus with a big brain visible through his transparent head. His voice was calm but firm. "The Galactic Council has made its decision," Mordun announced. "Humanity must withdraw from 12 star systems immediately. You have 1 full solar cycle, about 1 Earth year, to remove all colonies, mining operations, and military bases from these areas." The chamber went completely quiet. Even the air recycling systems seemed to stop making noise. "If humans refuse to comply," Mordun continued, "the combined fleets of 17 species will force your withdrawal. This is not a negotiation. This is a final demand." Park slowly stood up. Every alien eye in the room focused on him. Some species saw with regular eyes, others used heat sensors or electrical fields, but all of them were watching the lone human. "To representative, honorable council members," Park began, his voice steady and clear, "before you make this decision final, I need to warn you about something very important." But Vextar slammed one of his big fists on his desk, making a sound like a gunshot. "Enough human lies," the Kethvar commander roared. "We have studied your species for decades. We know exactly what your military can do. We have watched your wars, counted your ships, measured your weapons. You cannot threaten this council." Other aliens started making noise, agreeing with Vextar. Some were clicking, others were buzzing, and a few were making sounds humans couldn't even hear. Park tried again. "Please just listen for 1 moment. What you think you know about human capabilities is not—" "Silence," shouted Elder Thys. "Human arrogance knows no bounds. You think you can frighten us with empty threats?" Chancellor Mordun raised one. of his tentacles for quiet. The vote will now be taken. All in favor of the ultimatum against humanity? Hundreds of different hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose into the air. The vote was unanimous. Every single alien species voted for war against humanity. Park looked around the chamber one last time. His dark eyes met the gaze of beings from across the galaxy. Some looked angry, others seemed sad, but all of them had made the same choice. "So be it," Park said quietly. "But remember this moment. Remember that we tried to warn you." As he walked out of the chamber, Park's footsteps echoed off the crystal walls. Behind him, the aliens began planning their military campaign against Earth. They had no idea what they had just started. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council delivered their ultimatum to humanity. Ambassador Jiho Park walked back into the same crystal chamber, but this time something was different. The aliens seemed more relaxed, almost cheerful. They thought they had already won. Park carried a small data pad in his hand and wore the same black uniform as before, but his eyes looked tired, like someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. Behind him, huge holographic screens lit up the chamber, showing images that made the aliens nod with satisfaction. The displays showed human space stations orbiting distant planets, small patrol ships moving between star systems, mining operations, on asteroids, military bases that looked no bigger than shopping malls. Everything looked exactly like what the aliens had been watching for decades. "Honorable members of the Council," Park began, his voice steady despite the heavy atmosphere, "my government has authorized me to share classified information with this assembly." Some aliens leaned forward in their seats. Others whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal. High Commander Vextar crossed all 4 of his arms and waited. "What you see on these screens represents the sum total of human military presence that we have allowed you to observe," Park continued. "These forces, which you base your invasion plans on, account for exactly 2.8% of humanity's actual defensive capability." The chamber fell silent for about 3 seconds. Then the laughter started. It began with a few quiet chuckles from the Milani delegation. Their butterfly-like wings fluttered with amusement. Then Elder Thys of the ancient Zephyrians made a sound like wind through dry leaves, their version of laughing. Soon the entire chamber was filled with alien laughter, in dozens of different forms. Some aliens clicked their tongues, others made buzzing sounds. The rock-like Korath made deep rumbling noises from their chest. Even the serious Nexari were rippling their tentacles in what passed for humor among their people. Elder Thys was the first to speak when the laughter died down. Her tree-like form swayed slightly as she talked. "Young human," she said in her wind voice, "we have been watching your species since before you invented spaceflight. We observed your crude wars with metal ships and chemical explosives. We watched you struggle to reach your own moon. Do you really expect us to believe you have been hiding some massive secret fleet?" More chuckling rippled through the chamber. Trade Master Zilk of the Milani buzzed loudly. "We have trade agreements with every major shipyard in human space," Zilk said, his 6 arms waving. "We know exactly how many ships you can build. We have counted them. There is no hidden armada." Park touched his data pad, and the holographic displays changed. Now they showed technical specifications, battle reports, and operational guidelines. The text was too small for most aliens to read clearly, but they could see it was some kind of military documentation. Every ship you have observed, every battle you have monitored, every conflict you have studied, has operated under something called Peacetime Engagement Protocol 7, Park explained. These are rules of engagement, designed to minimize casualties on all sides, preserve civilian infrastructure, and maintain the possibility of diplomatic solutions. High Commander Vextar snorted, which sounded like an angry dragon. "Rules of engagement? In war there are no rules except victory or defeat." "Exactly," Park said quietly, "which is why these protocols have never been suspended in our entire history. Every human military action you have witnessed has been conducted with the primary goal of avoiding unnecessary death and destruction." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. Some whispered translations to others who didn't understand human concepts well. The idea of fighting a war while trying not to hurt the enemy was completely alien to most species. But as of 0600 hours this morning, Earth Standard Time, Park continued, the Human Defense Council has voted to remove all engagement restrictions. Protocol 7 has been suspended indefinitely. Chancellor Morden's big brain pulsed with different colors behind his transparent skull. What exactly are you trying to tell us, human? Park looked directly at the Chancellor. For 50 years, humanity has been trying to be good neighbors in this galaxy. We have held back our true military capabilities because we hoped diplomacy would work. We have allowed other species to think we were weak because we preferred peace to war. He gestured to the holographic displays. Every human defeat you have celebrated, every strategic withdrawal you have witnessed, every time you thought you had won against us, we were operating under rules that put your lives above our victory. The chamber was completely quiet now. Even the air recycling systems seemed to have stopped humming. We tried to warn you 3 weeks ago, Park said, his voice getting harder. We tried to explain that forcing humanity into a corner would have consequences, but you interpreted our restraint as weakness. You mistook our mercy for inability. Elder Theis's glowing bark dimmed slightly. You speak of consequences, human. What consequences could your small fleet possibly bring? Park smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. You're about to find out. Chancellor Morden waved one of his tentacles dismissively. 30 standard days, human. That was our offer. Nothing. You have said changes anything. After 30 days, our combined fleet will remove your colonies by force. And you believe your combined fleet can accomplish this? Park asked. We know it can, Vextar growled. 500 ships from 17. Different species. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Park nodded slowly and put his data pad away. Then I have delivered my government's final warning. When your fleets arrive at human space, you will not be facing the same forces. You have studied for decades. You will be facing humanity without restrictions, without rules, and without mercy. He turned to walk away, then stopped and looked back at the assembled aliens. We tried to warn you, he said one last time. Remember that when this is over. As Park's footsteps echoed off the crystal walls, the aliens sat in uncomfortable silence. Some were beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Tae-Min Lee stood at the center of the bridge aboard the HSS Indomitable, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the main viewing screen. In front of him, space looked like a moving city of lights. 500 alien warships were approaching in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. This was the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from 17 different species, all working together for one purpose: to force humanity into submission. The Kethvar brought their massive battle cruisers that looked like flying fortresses. The ancient Zephyrians contributed sleek vessels that moved like dancing shadows. Even the peaceful Milani had sent their defensive fleet, though their ships looked more like giant flowers than weapons of war. Lieutenant Bo-Ra Kim sat at her tactical station, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. She was young, maybe 25, but she had trained for this moment her entire career. Her voice was steady when she spoke. Sir, the alien fleet has entered our long-range sensor grid. They're moving in standard battle formation. I'm picking up over 3,000 energy signatures. That's weapons charging across their entire force. Lee nodded without taking his eyes off the screen. What are they broadcasting? Kim touched her earpiece and listened for a moment. Standard surrender demands on all emergency frequencies. They're giving us 10 minutes to power down our defenses and prepare for occupation. Around the bridge, 30 human officers went about their duties with calm efficiency. No one looked nervous. No one seemed worried about the massive fleet bearing down on them. They had been preparing for this day for years. Sir, came another voice from the communication station. We're getting reports from observation teams. Throughout the system, the aliens think they're facing our regular patrol fleet. Lee almost smiled at that. For decades, humanity had been very careful about what they let other species see. Every human ship that operated in alien space was deliberately old, small, and limited. Every military base was designed to look modest and defensive. Every battle humans fought was conducted with weapons that were good enough to win, but not good enough to scare anyone. Begin Phase 1 of the Revelation Protocol, Lee ordered quietly. Suddenly, Space around them began to change. What had looked like empty void started to shimmer and ripple like water. Massive shapes began to appear as advanced cloaking systems deactivated. First one, then 10, then dozens of enormous structures materialized out of nothing. The small human patrol ships that the aliens expected to find were nowhere to be seen. Instead, they were looking at vessels that made their own ships look like toys. The HSS Indomitable itself was 3 times larger than the biggest alien dreadnought. Around it, other human ships appeared like sleeping giants waking up. "Lieutenant, Kim, give me a count," Lee requested. Kim's eyes went wide as her sensors registered the true scope of human forces. "Sir, I'm reading 47 Dreadnought-class vessels, 36 full-carrier battle groups, and... Oh my God, sir, there are defensive installations out there the size of small moons. How long have these been here?" "Some for 10 years. Some were built last month," Lee replied. "We've been busy while the galaxy thought we were weak." The communication system crackled to life. A rough, angry voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Kreshetar of the Kethvar fleet. Human vessel. This is Admiral Kreshetar commanding the Galactic Enforcement Fleet. You are completely surrounded and outnumbered. We count only 12 of your ships against our 500. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Surrender now and we will treat your crews with honor." Lee walked over to the communication station and picked up the transmitter himself. When he spoke, his voice was calm and professional. "Admiral Kreshetar, this is Admiral Taemin Lee of the Human Defense Force. You are currently entering sovereign human territory without permission. This constitutes an act of war under galactic law. I am ordering you to reverse course and withdraw immediately." Laughter came through the speakers, not just from Kreshetar, but from other alien commanders listening in on the conversation. "Admiral." "Lee," Kreshetar responded, still chuckling. "You speak of war as if you have a choice in the matter. We see 12 human ships, 12 against 500. Even your largest vessel is no match for our combined firepower. This will be over in minutes." Lee looked at his tactical display. The real numbers were very different from what the aliens could see. Their sensors were still adjusting to the sudden appearance of so many human vessels. They had no idea what they were really facing. "Lieutenant Kim," Lee said quietly, "show Admiral Kreshetar what he's really looking at." Kim's fingers flew across her controls. Suddenly, every human ship in the system lit up like a star. Active sensor sweeps revealed the true size and number of human vessels. Energy signatures spiked as weapon systems that had been hidden behind sensor dampeners came online. The alien fleet's advance suddenly slowed as their commanders realized they weren't looking at 12 small ships anymore. Lee picked up the transmitter again. "Admiral Kreshetar, I'm transmitting our actual fleet composition to your tactical officers. Take a moment to review the data." Silence filled the communication channel for nearly a minute. Lee could imagine the chaos on alien bridges as their sensors showed them the truth. Hundreds of human ships, defensive platforms that could destroy entire fleets, and weapons technology they had never seen before. When Kreshetar spoke again, his voice had lost its confidence. This is impossible. Our intelligence showed—" "Your intelligence showed exactly what we wanted you to see," Lee interrupted. "For 50 years, humanity has operated under strict peacetime protocols. We have deliberately limited our military presence to avoid frightening our galactic neighbors. Every battle you have studied, every human defeat you have celebrated, was fought by forces operating under rules designed to minimize casualties and preserve diplomatic relations." Lee's voice got harder. "Those rules have been suspended." Another voice broke into the channel. "Elder Thys of the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Lee, surely you do not intend to fight the entire galaxy. Even with these hidden forces, you cannot stand against every species working together." "Elder Thys," Lee replied, "humanity has never wanted to fight anyone. We have spent decades trying to find peaceful solutions to every conflict. But you have forced our hand. You have chosen to interpret our restraint as weakness." He looked around the bridge at his officers. Every one of them was ready. They had trained for this moment, hoped it would never come, but prepared for it nonetheless. "Admiral Kreshetar," Lee said into the transmitter, "you have 30 seconds to begin. Withdrawal procedures. After that, We will demonstrate exactly why humanity has been holding back all these years. The alien fleet continued its advance. Weapon systems across 500 ships reached full charge. The largest military force in galactic history prepared to attack. They had no idea what they had just walked into. The alien fleet opened fire first. 500 ships unleashed everything they had in one massive coordinated attack. Energy beams that could melt asteroids, plasma torpedoes that burned hotter than stars, and kinetic projectiles moving at incredible speeds all streaked toward the human formation. Space itself seemed to catch fire. The combined firepower was so intense that it created its own light show, turning the darkness between stars into a blazing inferno. On alien bridges across the fleet, commanders watched their sensors and smiled. No ship could survive that kind of bombardment. But when the light faded and the energy dissipated, the human fleet was still there. Every single human ship sat exactly where it had been before, completely untouched. Their shields hadn't just absorbed the attack, they had made it look easy. The energy readings showed that the human defensive systems had barely even registered the assault. Admiral Lee stood calmly on his bridge, watching the shocked faces of his crew. Lieutenant Kim was staring at her instruments in amazement. "Sir," she reported, "enemy fire absorbed with minimal power drain. All ships reporting full operational status." Lee nodded and spoke in the same quiet voice he had been using all day. "Return fire." What happened next changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The human weapons didn't just fire, they sang. Energy beams that looked like concentrated lightning reached across space in perfect straight lines. When they hit alien shields, those shields didn't slowly weaken or gradually fail. They simply vanished, like soap bubbles popping. The HFY battlecruiser Dominator took a direct hit from the HSS Indomitable. The massive alien warship, which had won 100 battles across the galaxy, split completely in half. Its armor, which was supposed to be the strongest in known space, melted like ice cream in the sun. A formation of 12 Zephyrian destroyers tried to attack the human carrier, Busan. The ancient alien ships moved with the grace and speed their species was famous for, dancing through space like leaves in the wind. But the human point defense systems tracked them perfectly. Tiny defensive lasers designed to stop missiles cut through the alien hulls like hot knives through butter. Captain Sojin Ryu was commanding the destroyer Soul's Pride when 6 alien cruisers surrounded her ship. She was only 28 years old, the youngest ship commander in the human fleet. But she had trained for this her entire life. "Captain," her weapons officer called out, "we're taking heavy fire from all sides. Main power coupling is damaged. Primary weapons are offline." The alien ships moved closer, sensing victory. Their commanders probably thought they had finally found a human ship they could defeat. Energy beams hammered the Soul's Pride from every direction. The ship's lights flickered and went dim. Then something amazing happened. "Emergency protocols activated," the ship's computer announced in a calm female voice. "Switching to combat configuration." Suddenly, panels all over the ship's hull slid open, revealing weapon ports that hadn't been there moments before. Backup. Reactors that the aliens didn't know existed came online with a deep humming sound. Additional armor plating deployed from hidden compartments, making the ship look twice as thick as before. "All secondary weapons online, Captain," her weapons officer reported with a grin. "Backup power at 100%. Within 3 minutes, all 6 alien cruisers were nothing but glowing debris floating in space. This same scene was happening all across the battlefield. Human ships that appeared damaged would suddenly reveal backup systems that were better than their primary systems had been. Vessels that looked like they were about to be destroyed would sprout new weapons and continue fighting like nothing had happened. The aliens began to realize they weren't just losing, they were being outclassed in every possible way. Admiral Kreshitar's flagship, the Blood of HFY, was the pride of his entire species. It was a massive ship, over 2 kilometers, long, covered in weapons and armor that had been perfected over thousands of years of warfare. Kreshitar had personally commanded it in 50 different battles and had never even been seriously damaged. Now he found himself facing a single human dreadnought called the Incheon. Captain Dongwu Chang, commanded the human vessel, and he seemed to be in no hurry at all. "All weapons, concentrate fire on that human ship," Kreshitar ordered. "Bring every gun we have to bear." The blood of Kethvar unleashed its full arsenal. Plasma cannons designed to crack planets fired continuously. Missile pods launched hundreds of guided warheads. Energy beams that could cut through moons struck the human ship again and again. Nothing happened. The human dreadnought just sat there absorbing everything without even seeming to notice. Then the Incheon fired back, not with dozens of weapons, not with hundreds of missiles. Just one single energy beam, the blood of Kethvar's main armor belt, 3 meters of the strongest metal known to Kethvar science, simply ceased to exist. The beam passed through the ship's defenses like they weren't even there, carving a precise hole from one side to the other. "Impossible," Kreshitar whispered, staring at his damage reports. "Our intelligence showed human weapons were barely effective against scout ship armor." Admiral Lee's voice came through the communication system, as calm as ever. "Admiral Kreshitar, your intelligence was based on our peacetime operations. Every human ship you studied, every battle you observed, was operating under strict rules, designed to minimize casualties and preserve infrastructure. Another human weapon fired, and the blood of Kethvar lost its entire forward weapons section. What you're seeing now," Lee continued, "is what we've been holding back." Across the battlefield, the alien fleet was falling apart. Ships that had dominated their home sectors for centuries were being destroyed by human vessels they outnumbered 10 to 1. Advanced alien technology that had taken millennia to develop was proving useless against human innovations that seemed to come from nowhere. The Milani trade ships, designed for defense rather than attack, tried to retreat early. But human interceptors caught them before they could reach safe distance. The aliens watched in horror as their fastest ships were overtaken by human fighters that moved like they were bending the laws of physics. "All ships," Admiral Kreshitar broadcast on the general fleet frequency. "Begin withdrawal. Repeat, all ships begin immediate withdrawal." But it was too late for most of them. The galaxy's greatest military force was learning the hard way that humanity had been playing by different rules all along. 6 months had passed since the battle that changed everything. The grand crystal chamber of the old Galactic Council was empty now, its lights dimmed and its seats covered in dust. Instead, Ambassador Jiho Park sat in a much smaller meeting room aboard a human space station orbiting the neutral world of Kepler 442b. The room was simple and functional, with white walls and basic furniture. There were no golden thrones or floating platforms here, just a regular conference table, with chairs that could accommodate different alien body types. The survivors of the galactic fleet had learned to appreciate simplicity. Park looked older than he had 6 months ago. His black hair now showed streaks of grey at the temples, and there were new lines around his eyes. The weight of what had happened, and what was still happening, showed on his face. Across from him sat the remnants of what used to be the most powerful political body in the galaxy. Elder Thais of the Zephyrians sat quietly, her glowing bark much dimmer than before. Her people had lost 60% of their fleet in the battle. The ancient species that had ruled space lanes for thousands of years now struggled to protect their own home systems. Trademaster Zilk of the Melanie buzzed nervously in his chair. His butterfly-like wings, once bright with confidence, now seemed faded and fragile. The Melani trade empire had collapsed almost overnight when their protective fleet was destroyed. Pirates and raiders now attacked their merchant ships with impunity. Admiral Kreshitar sat at the far end of the table, and he looked like a completely different person. The proud Kethvar warrior, who had commanded 500 ships, now spoke, for fewer than 30 vessels. His forearms, once used for dramatic gestures of power, now hung limply at his sides. The scars on his hide had been joined by new ones, souvenirs from escape pods and emergency evacuations. "The Terran Federation appreciates you all coming here today," Park began, his voice diplomatic but carrying an undertone of authority that hadn't been there before. "We believe it's time to establish a new framework for galactic relations." Chancellor Mordun, the former leader of the old council, rippled his tentacles weakly. His transparent head showed a brain that pulsed with much less vibrant colors than before. "Framework?" Human, your species has already taken what it wanted. Why do you need our permission now? Park leaned forward slightly. Because that's not who we are. Humanity has never sought to rule over others. We want the same thing we've always wanted: peaceful coexistence, fair trade agreements, and the freedom to live our lives without interference. Elder Theiss made a sound like wind through dying leaves. After what happened at the battle, do you really expect us to believe you seek peace? Elder Theiss, Park replied, what happened at the battle was a direct result of your council's decision to invade human space. We warned you. We tried to explain the consequences. You chose not to listen. He activated a small holographic display that showed star maps and shipping routes. Since the battle, human forces have not expanded beyond our previous borders. We have not claimed new territory. We have not demanded tribute or reparations from any species. This was true, and everyone in the room knew it. In the months following their devastating victory, humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had helped their former enemies. Human medical ships had rescued survivors from destroyed alien vessels. Human engineers had helped repair damaged space stations. Human merchants had even continued trading with species that had attacked them. Director Hyunwoo Seo, who sat beside Park, opened a data folder. He was the head of human intelligence, a quiet man in his 50s who had been tracking alien activities for decades. We have documented evidence of 17 different species requesting human protection from pirates and raiders. Our forces have responded to these requests and secured trade routes in 12 different sectors. Admiral Kreshtar leaned forward, his voice bitter. Protection? You mean occupation? Do we? SEO asked calmly. Our forces leave immediately when the threat is neutralized. We don't establish permanent bases. We don't demand payment. We don't interfere with local governments. How exactly is that occupation? The room fell silent. The aliens had no answer because there wasn't one. Human behavior since the battle had been completely contrary to everything they expected from a victorious military force. The Terran Federation proposes a new galactic charter, Park continued. Every species maintains complete sovereignty over their home systems. Trade routes are protected by mutual agreement. Disputes are resolved through negotiation rather than force. Trade Master Zilk's buzzing got louder. And who enforces these agreements? Who has the power to make sure everyone follows the rules? Park and SEO exchanged a look. This was the question they had known was coming. The same force that has been enforcing galactic stability for the past 50 years, Park said quietly. The same force that prevented the Kethvar from conquering the Milani trade routes 15 years ago. The same force that stopped the Zephyrian expansion into Korath space 20 years ago. The aliens stared at him in confusion. You see, Seo explained, every time a major conflict threatened to destabilize the galaxy, human peacekeeping forces would arrive. Small fleets that seemed barely adequate for the job. They would separate the fighting parties and negotiate ceasefires. Elder Theiss's bark began to glow brighter as understanding dawned. We're saying that humanity has been the galaxy's unofficial police force for decades, Park confirmed. Every time you thought you had won a victory over human forces, you were actually being allowed to back down with honor. Every time a weak human fleet convinced you to stop fighting, they were preventing you from starting a war you couldn't win. The silence in the room was deafening. The former council members were realizing that their entire understanding of galactic politics had been wrong. They hadn't been the powerful rulers they thought they were. They had been children playing at politics while the adults made sure nobody got seriously hurt. Admiral Kreshtar laughed, but it was a harsh, broken sound. Left alone? Human, your species already controls half the galaxy. You just admitted it. Park shook his head firmly. We control nothing, Admiral. We simply no longer allow others to control us. There's a significant difference. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. For 50 years, humanity tried to fit into the galactic community. We followed your rules, respected your boundaries, and accepted your authority. We did this because we believed in peace and cooperation. Park turned back to face the assembled aliens. But you interpreted our restraint as weakness. You decided that humans could be pushed around, threatened, and ultimately conquered. You forced us to show you the truth. Director CO pulled up another holographic display showing current human deployments. Our forces are now openly protecting trade routes, mediating disputes, and maintaining peace in 47 different sectors. We're not hiding anymore. The choice you have, Park continued, is simple. You can work with us to build a better, more stable galaxy, or you can try to go back to the old ways of conquest and domination. He gestured to the window and the vast expanse of space beyond. But understand this, the galaxy has changed. The old council is gone. The old balance of power no longer exists. What happens next depends on whether you choose cooperation or conflict. Trademaster Zilk was the first to speak. And if we choose cooperation, then the Terran Federation will help rebuild your merchant fleets, Park replied. We'll provide security for your trade routes. We'll share technology that can benefit all species. And if we choose conflict, Elder Thais asked, though her voice suggested she already knew the answer. Director Seo answered this time. Then you choose conflict. We won't start wars, but we'll finish them. We won't invade your worlds, but we'll defend ourselves. We won't force you to accept our leadership, but we won't pretend to accept yours either. One by one, the former council members left the meeting room. Each carried with them the same message for their home worlds. The age of alien dominance was over. Humanity had tried to warn them, had tried to work within their system, had tried to find peaceful solutions. But sometimes, the galaxy only learns to listen when it's too late to misunderstand the message. As the last alien delegate departed, Park sat back down and opened his personal log. The age of human restraint is officially over, he recorded. But perhaps, just perhaps, the age of true galactic cooperation is about to begin. Outside the window, human ships moved quietly through space, no longer hiding their true capabilities. The galaxy had a new reality to adjust to, and humanity would be there to help, whether the other species wanted that help or not. The universe had learned that sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one you should listen to most carefully.